Alrighty folks, I want to welcome you back to another video from Yates Computer Tips and Reviews. This one I wanted to cover a slight difference. I know it's shown some mice. I know it's kind of a simple basic thing, but I wanted to cover a few little basic differences. Basically, you have your pretty much your traditional mouse with the wire. This one would be the USB mouse. Before that, and currently, there's a PS2 with the round connector. That is considered a legacy item. But, I gotta throw a big but in there. It's not truly legacy yet. There's a lot of issues going on with those. I don't think I have one here. I didn't prep it, but silly me. But no, I don't. For gaming wise, for future USB expansion lifestyle wise, I would say. Biggest problem with USB is this is a hot swappable port, meaning it's meant for devices you plug in and you unplug. So there's a lot of people that are really upset that everything went to USB. The PS2 port is a dedicated port on the motherboard for your keyboard and your mouse. A lot of people say, well, there was nothing wrong with having that dedicated port because, number one, USB is hot swappable. So why would you plug your keyboard and mouse into a USB? You need your keyboard and mouse all the time, so it's not really hot swappable. So now you used a feature you have. So if you have 4 USB ports, you're now using 2 for your keyboard and mouse. So they're still working on the PS2 because that's a different ports and how it's run into the board and all of that. It's a whole different architecture. Gamers still like it. There's a latency issue with the keyboards and mice that are USB. USB's gotten so fast nowadays you really don't tell. But the professional gamers are still unhappy with that. If you're a professional gamer, you should understand a lot of what I'm talking about. So, one of the main reasons I had to go into all of this, because it also relates to this. Your wireless, your USB, your Bluetooth, whatever technology you want to use to connect wirelessly. This one, the dongle, is here. The dongle is the little piece you plug into the USB port that communicates to the computer. This talks to this, that talks to the computer. This is your middle source. This is crucially important. You lose this, you lose all your communication. Most of the USB mice have a spot to put it. It's either in with the battery or here, or there's a spot to save it. Because they're on a certain channel of frequency that you have to keep that one with that mouse. You can't mix them. So, one of the options that they were doing that a lot of people don't really realize is now you have a mouse keyboard combination where you have a keyboard and a mouse with one dongle, because they thought that will please people, because now you're using up one USB port, where in the old days you had 2 dedicated ports, so that, okay, now we're using less ports. Well, it still doesn't resolve a lot of the technical issues, latency and all of those type of things. So good gaming mice are basically like this. Usually they're separate because they're on their own separate frequency and they communicate. You'll have to do a lot of research. I know there's gamers out there, you know what I'm talking about. So this is kind of a rough run through for all of you. But if you're an entry gamer, you might not understand all of this. So going through a lot of this, I know watching videos, going through it, they don't really go through a lot of information. Now, if you're a home user, using simple programs, doing simple stuff, maybe playing some online games, no shoot-'ems, no anything like that, that you have to be quick as you can, accurate as you can, these all should work fine for you. If you get into drawing, art, any kind of fine detail, you're going to have to do more research. As I said, these, that is including the one that's wired. Because I'll tell you, just because this is a wired USB mouse does not mean it's better than this. There always are cheap parts that you can run across. There's always medium grade parts. There's always high grade quality parts. Now, I will not stop at high grade parts. I will go into high grade gaming parts and standard gaming parts. They have different latencies, different click patterns. There's a lot of different things that go on. One of the other features is like this one has the buttons on the side. Some gaming people love them. This is not too bad. The one I have on another computer has one on each side where you can scroll pages left and right when you're reading instruction manuals and other things that are really convenient. So that might be something you might be interested in. And of course, the biggest one is the look. How does it look? What is on it? This one has a little plastic around. I haven't turned it on. I'm sure there's an LED light or something in there. This one's red, black. Make them all kinds of colors, blue, pink, green. You can go crazy with the colors. So you have those features. But the performance factors, if you're gaming, and it may be some business stuff depending on what you're doing, you probably can't get away with a cheap one. You probably want to go out and buy a nice one, $80, $100, $200, whatever you need to pay to make sure you get the quality you need. But for most home users, I'm sure you can get away with something like that. Thrift stores usually have a ton of them because people buy computers, they come with it, they don't want it, it's the manufacturer brand or whatever. Actually, those all work great. I haven't had any problems with those. These third-party ones that aren't branded and all this stuff, you can have issues with. So I haven't had any problems with those. So I wanted to go through that. I wanted to show everybody that. So this is the basics on this. And I wanted to show everybody that. The difference between the wired and the wireless. Oh, I forgot one thing, so I'm going to have to run and get that. So let me pause this video. But I wanted to touch on this. And I'll be back one moment, folks. Alrighty, I'm back with the part that I wanted to show next. This is a mouse. This is actually a wired mouse. I dropped it, I broke it. So, figured as long as it was broken, I wanted to show some features. I'm sure you can hear the clicking from the button. I'm sure a lot of people have not seen the inside of a mouse because why would you? They break, they don't work, the little sensors, the little buttons break, you just throw them out, you buy a new one. This one will actually open because the little mechanism broke inside. So once you open it up, you see there's a little button that basically goes here, pushes this little black plastic piece. Is basically what it's doing. It's an extension of the button that actually hits the little button in here. You got the dial to reel up and down. It's got the little mechanism here that reads it when it turns. On there, when you click, come on out of there. You have all your little switches. When you click, right click, left click, you push down on the reel, when you push down on the button, this one had an LED, the wiring all came out, ran around and out the front. So I wanted to show you, this is what is actually in there. It's got the little laser that shoots out that tells when it moves. It had a plastic piece underneath that I actually lost, I can't find it. When I find it, I'll put it back together and it'll be a piece that I can teach people with. So that's where the technology has gone. I don't know how many people have been around and took apart the old-fashioned ball mouse. If you find one of those in a thrift store, they're fun. Open them up, check them out. It's always interesting to look at that stuff. I always found that interesting to see what is in there. It's just got a little thread on the bottom where you can open it up, take the ball out. A lot of times when it stopped working, you had to take the ball out and clean it. Put that back together later. But I just wanted to show you the basics of what is actually on there. There's not much there. Technology's gotten so small, so tiny, that that's what's in there. So, you know, of course this will have a few little other components because of the wireless feature. But that's basically what's in here. I can probably actually show you. If you look real hard, you can actually see the board and everything in there through the clear panel. But that's basically what's in these nowadays. They're not a whole lot of components, not a lot of technology in them. So I wanted to do a quick video on that. You actually get to see the inside of one. I don't think any of that's proprietary, anything that's top secret anymore. There's so many makers out there, so many manufacturers, but who's going to actually make one of those themselves and go through that to build all that? You're going to need the equipment, you're going to need all this stuff anyways. Much cheaper just to buy one. So, but that's a variable. That's when I'm talking about quality of parts. You can see there's not that much in there. But the board quality, the traces, all of these other factors that come into it when you manufacture these things. There's a lot of technical stuff. But as a home user and as a business user, that should not be one of the major factors you have to worry about, is how advanced and technical your mouse is. Of course, if you get into artwork and you get into all the 3D graphics and you get into animation and you get into a lot of other things, you may need to start looking into some of these factors. So that's what I basically wanted to cover in this. I wanted to go more in detail of the mouse, because before I went through the connectors and what they look like and what the history was and where they've come through and where they're at. So I wanted to do a follow-up on that video. I don't know if anybody's really interested in that, but I'm hoping that one of my videos will be the spark to someone making a career or a design of computers. My spark was a silly little spark. I mentioned it in the other video. Just oohing and eyeing, like, wow, how was that done? Or, ooh, wow. Like, could be a little silly thing that catches someone's eye. A lot of this technology has gotten so small, you can get cards that are 7.1 surround sound that you hook a headphone jack to, and it sounds like 7.1 in your headset. There's some amazing stuff out there. So, wanted to sum up this, that this is not the only technology out there, these ones. This is just the traditional. This is probably what almost every business and every home user will use. But I want to re-elaborate that I know I didn't show the PS2 port. I know it's not traditionally dead yet, but I call it a legacy item. Because ultimately, I don't know if this will actually ever come back to a business and a home environment. It may, because once motherboards start readapting that technology with the new speeds and the new stuff, you might find that coming back. It may not necessarily be a PS2 port. So I wanted to elaborate on that. It might be a USB style port. It could be a FireWire port. It could be a lightning bolt port. Could be a mini HDMI, could be full HDMI, it could be any of these other little port variables that would give that connection speed and that bus to the computer that would now take you to the new technology. And that goes back to what I keep going back to. So if you don't know where the technology comes from, you don't know where you can go. Because on my other video, like I showed the motherboard, the technology really has not changed. It really hasn't. Where it's at, the speeds and certain things, but most of them, if the ports changed, the ports changed for certain reason, but that port on the board, even though it's a different port, still does the same function, still does the same job. So that's why I elaborate so much on, if you don't know where the technology came from, you don't know where it can end up. We might be at the same PS2 technology on a new port with a certain dedicated bus right to the CPU or memory or wherever it needs to go to work at a high enough speed that resolves everything, any problems for the future. But we don't know. We don't know what the next step is yet. Next step hasn't been released. Hasn't been broadcast to the world yet. So maybe one day someone will see this video, might see this stuff, and it'll click, and they'll come up with the world-breaking idea of, we need this, and that'll resolve all of that, and then there it'll be. So I hope this helps everybody at home. Hope this helps everybody in a work environment, everybody in a school environment, everybody bouncing back and forth now between work and home and everything else. Between portable devices, fixed devices, servers, and everything else. Don't forget, this also applies to business environments for servers and other things. You have to keep aware of it because your technology might get outdated because you don't have the correct ports for the new modern technology. So, I'm going to wrap this up because I don't want to go on too long over something as simple as a mouse, but that is something that is a simple item that can find out, that can come back to bite you later, that here you were looking at a certain technology in a certain way, your network speeds, all your data connections, and all of these type of things, and you missed something like this that went whoop, and you went whoop, and now you're uncompatible. So, that's one of these things that, like I said, this field is easy, but it's complicated because there's so much. So, thank you. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the bell down below.